On a clear spring day in Florida, a passenger jet takes off for Atlanta, Georgia. 110 people are on board. Then, just minutes into the flight, the aircraft swerves out of control in the sky. Soon it plummets into the Florida Everglades. The wreckage all but disappears into the alligator-infested swamp. The cause is a total mystery. Now, using advanced computer simulation, we reveal the facts behind one of America's most baffling air crashes and show exactly what went wrong on Flight 592. Disasters don't just happen. They're triggered by a chain of critical events. Unravel the clues and count down those final seconds from disaster. The United States, Florida, Miami International Airport, 1:25 p.m. Flight attendant Mandy Summers welcomes the passengers. At the gate, ramp agents load the DC-9's forward cargo hold with passenger baggage. 62 pounds of U.S. mail and some aircraft parts, 3 tires, and several cardboard boxes labeled COMAT, short for company material. In the cockpit this afternoon is Captain Candlin Kubek.
All right, Richard, how about a before-start checklist?
She has 2,000 hours flying time on DC-9s and is known for her dedication to the job. 1:30 p.m. and the aircraft is 30 minutes behind schedule. Checking through the systems is First Officer Richard Hazen, an Air Force veteran with 20 years of aviation experience. Faulty equipment isn't unusual at ValueJet. The carrier sells low-cost airfares using old airplanes bought from around the world. Its fleet is among the oldest in the United States, averaging 26 years. And there have been some recent incidents. Just under a year ago, an engine exploded on another DC-9 while it was on the runway in Atlanta. 7 people were injured by flying debris, and the Federal Aviation Administration has the carrier under investigation. 1:41 p.m. Mechanics can't fix the autopilot before the flight, so the flight crew disengages it. The other problems aren't serious, so the plane is ready to go.
Set pressure normal.
Captain Kubek and First Officer Hazen go through their final pre-flight checks, preparing for takeoff. 1:44 p.m. After a 44-minute delay, ground control finds Flight 592, call sign Critter, for takeoff.
Florida 592, you're clear to Atlanta by the Miami 7.
Clear on your side?
Clear right.
All right, clear over here on the left.
Now the flight crew taxis the 53-ton plane towards the runway and waits for their takeoff slot. (2:03). 63 minutes after the scheduled departure time. The DC-9 accelerates down the runway and Captain Kubek eases its nose up. At last, Flight 592 is on its way. By 2:11 p.m., the situation is getting worse on the DC-9 bound for Atlanta. Smoke is rising from the cabin floor and getting thicker. At the same time, there's a problem in the cockpit. The pilots hear a loud bang on their headphones.
What was that?
I don't know.
There's a problem with the plane's electrical system. The battery charger has activated, trying to restore power. Then, smoke starts to seep into the cockpit.
Critter 592, we need a meter return to Miami International.
Turn left, heading 270.
Descend and maintain 7,000.
What kind of problem do you have?
Now it's obvious that something is seriously wrong.
Smoke in the cabin.
2:11 and 30 seconds. On board the DC-9, Kubek struggles with the aircraft. The controls are no longer responding normally. In the cabin, the temperature is rising. 2:13 and 34 seconds. On board the plane, the passengers and crew have passed out. (2:13 and 42 seconds). Just 9 minutes and 27 seconds after takeoff. Flight 592 crashes into the Florida Everglades. The crash site is 300 yards from the nearest levee and 9 miles from the nearest road. Rescuers can only reach it by airboat and helicopter. As the story comes into the networks, rescuers continue to look for survivors until the light fades.
We have not so far been able to find any victims, any survivors.
Now, by rewinding the events of that fateful day and going deep into the investigation, we can reveal what really happened to ValueJet Flight 592. Advanced computer simulation will take us where no camera can, into the heart of the disaster zone.
Described as a
900 miles north in Washington, D.C., National Transportation Safety Board expert Greg Feith watches the news from Miami. He's led 2 major investigations for the Safety Board before, but he already knows this one will be a challenge.
As I was running around my house packing to leave and having all the TVs on and they were showing aerial views of the accident site, all I could wonder as an accident investigator is how am I going to conduct this investigation when I don't see any visible wreckage?
As Greg assembles the Safety Board's rapid response team, an NTSB official captures the scene with a home video camera. Just 2 hours after the loss of Flight 592, they're en route to Miami.
All the information that you get, all the evidence that you develop is equal until such time is that the storyline, the facts support a particular storyline.
The hole in the swamp is 130 feet long and 40 feet wide. Wearing special biohazard suits to protect them from spilt aviation fuel, rescuers walk shoulder to shoulder, combing the murky water. But the swamp proves almost impossible to penetrate. Beneath the water lies a thick layer of matted vegetation. Sawgrass cuts and tangles the rescuers as they try to move forward. Conditions at the site where ValueJet 592 crashed are hazardous. There's a constant threat from alligators, attracted by the search activity, the wreck, and its contents. Armed guards are deployed to keep the predators away. To make matters worse, the airboats and search teams are stirring up the silt layer, reducing visibility below the water from just a few inches to none. Then, in an attempt to see through the murky water, the team brings in ground-penetrating radar. They find a thick layer of mud below the water level. And below that, 7 feet down, solid limestone. The plane smashed into thousands of pieces as it hit the rock. The team starts to piece together the recovered debris at nearby Kendall-Tamiami Airport, where Safety Board specialists will examine it. Slowly, sections of the DC-9 begin to take shape. The investigators painstakingly recover, decontaminate, and identify thousands of pieces. There are 2 parts that would help the investigation: the flight data and cockpit voice recorders. But the black boxes, as they're often called, remain stubbornly hidden in the swamp.
Without them, it would have made the investigative process very difficult because they were going to provide us with a lot of information.
The team carries on and finds that even without the black boxes, the wreckage in the hangar does begin to yield useful information. Metal seat frames melted. Carpets and fuselage coverings burned intensely. It becomes clear that the smoke First Officer Hazen reported had come from a blazing fire, one hot enough to melt aluminum. As a police team fans out across the muddy pools of swamp water, an officer steps on something solid, a moment captured on camera. It's the FDR, or Flight Data Recorder, a major find.
Damn, we got a box.
If the box survived the crash intact, it will provide the team with key technical data from the flight, including airspeed, altitude, and the plane's movements in the air. Most importantly, it will tell them whether the plane's engines failed. But when technicians and officials at NTSB headquarters get their first look at the flight data recorder, they are not optimistic. After hours of delicate work, the NTSB's analysts managed to extract the data from the damaged flight data recorder. If they can find the second black box, the cockpit voice recorder, they might find the missing clues they need.
The flight data recorder won't tell us what was actually happening in the airplane. The cockpit voice recorder could give us a clue as to what the origin of the fire was because the crew would have been talking about the things that were taking place.
By Sunday, May 26th, the search has been going on for more than 2 frustrating weeks. Today, the search party is one man short. Finally, the break everyone has been hoping for. The voice recording gives investigators a chilling insight into the crew's last moments. First, they discovered that Captain Kubek and her co-pilot Richard Hazen knew they had a problem at 2:10 p.m., 6 minutes into the flight, when they heard a strange noise on their headphones.
What was that?
I don't know.
We got some kind of electrical problem.
Then, the plane's battery charger kicks into life.
Battery charger's kicking in.
We're losing everything.
We need oxygen. We can't get oxygen back there.
Nearly 3 minutes before the crash, flight attendant Jennifer Stearns opens the cockpit door. The passengers in the cabin are the first to be overcome by smoke. To Fife, this places the fire somewhere behind the pilots. Investigators at Kendall Tamiami concentrate on the area around the jet's passenger cabin. The fire was so intense here that the floor has literally melted away. Could something beneath the passenger's feet, possibly in the forward cargo hold, have started the fire? It's an unlikely scenario. This compartment is officially known as a Class D hold. Completely airtight, it also has a fireproof lining. Any blaze here should quickly burn itself out due to lack of oxygen. But Fife checks it out anyway.
We had to go back to the manifest. We had to see what was in that forward cargo hold.
The safety board studies the paperwork to see if the forward hold contained anything suspicious. There were 62 pounds of mail and some passenger baggage. But with a bomb or incendiary device already ruled out, investigators move on. The manifest shows 3 tires from another DC-9 in the compartment. The shipping ticket also lists 5 cardboard boxes full of parts labeled oxygen canisters loaded in the hold. At first, Greg and his team have no concerns. They think they're empty steel oxygen cylinders that fit in many different kinds of planes. But then the whole investigation takes a dramatic turn. These are not just oxygen cylinders. In fact, they're chemical oxygen generators, small metal canisters containing a volatile mix of compounds.
That changed the whole complexity and complexion of the investigation.
When installed, the generators supply oxygen for passengers in an emergency. They are attached to a face mask with a thin rope that connects to a firing pin. If passengers pull down on the masks, the pin is released, starting a chemical reaction which produces oxygen. During use, the generator's surface temperature can reach 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Could the spare generators housed in the hold have somehow activated and burst into flames? There's just one problem with this theory. The shipping ticket lists all the generators as empty, so they couldn't have been hazardous. Or could they? Investigators interview staff from ValueJet's maintenance company, SaberTech, based in Miami. They discover that the generators in the boxes on board Flight 592 had been removed from 2 McDonnell Douglas MD-82 jets because they were out of date. The rules for disposal are clear. They should either be activated and disposed of properly or made safe by fitting small safety caps over the firing mechanism. SaberTech produces work cards confirming that the generators were properly dealt with. But then comes a disturbing discovery. Salvage teams recover 28 of the generators from the swamp, 18 almost intact. Greg and his team examine them carefully. They discover that 9 of the 28 show signs of activation. At least some of the oxygen generators could not have been empty, as the shipping ticket said. When they question the SaberTech workers further, they admit they didn't fit any safety caps on the canisters. They just duct taped the cords around the metal canisters or cut them and stuck the ends down with tape. Then they signed off the work cards even though the correct procedure hadn't been followed. Finally, a stock clerk packed them loosely under a layer of bubble wrap.
I couldn't understand how the process could break down so substantially, and the carelessness that originated on the shop floor could escalate to getting these oxygen generators on the airplane.
But so far, it's only a theory. The NTSB conducts an experiment. They construct a replica hold at the Federal Aviation Authority's fire test facility near Atlantic City. Technicians place 28 generators in a box and cover them in bubble wrap. They pull a wire connected to the pin of one generator and retreat. They have high hopes, but the generator heat produces just a small fire and a little smoke. None of the other generators activates, and the box doesn't catch fire. Greg's theory doesn't seem to be standing up.
That first test was discouraging. You tend to start to question, are we really going down the right road?
With the public, the airline industry, and friends and families of 110 people pressing them for answers, the NTSB investigators are facing a crisis. The mystery of what downed ValueJet 592 is proving to be a tough nut to crack. Early results from the fire test facility suggest that the chemical oxygen generators simply don't create enough heat to start a fire. Greg Feith and his team try again. They have no alternative. They repeat the test, but this time they copy the conditions in the hold more accurately. They use more generators, baggage, and an airplane tire. This time the fire takes hold in just a few minutes. After 10 minutes, the roof of the test hold is at 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. A minute later, it has climbed another 800 degrees Fahrenheit. 30 seconds more, and the temperature is too high to be measured accurately by the lab equipment. Then, after 16 minutes, comes a noise that provides the last clue. The tire in the recreation of the hold has burst. The oxygen generators did have the capacity to start and sustain a fire. Investigators now know the critical chain of events that led to the crash of Flight 592. They know why a fire started on board the plane, what fueled it, and why the pilot lost control of the aircraft, leaving everyone on board seconds from disaster. May 11th, 1996. 1 hour to disaster. A SaberTech driver pulls up at gate G2 at Miami International Airport with ValueJet cargo for Flight 592. Inside the boxes are 144 out-of-date oxygen generators loosely packed. A ramp agent places them around a large airplane tire. 30 minutes to go. As the plane taxis to the runway, the loose packing and unsecured cargo jolt one of the generators into action. It begins to heat up. 11 minutes to disaster. The plane taxis to its takeoff position. In the hold, the surface of the metal generator gets hotter and hotter. Soon the heat ignites the cardboard box and bubble wrap, and the blaze begins. 10 minutes to disaster. Flight 592 takes off from Miami International. Even though the hold is airtight, the fire is now blazing, sustained by the oxygen produced by the generators. 3.5 minutes to go.
What was that?
The sound heard by the crew is one of the tires in the hold bursting, just as it did in the lab test. Unknown to the pilots, the fire begins to eat away at the systems on board.
We got some kind of electrical problem.
The battery charge is kicking in.
We're losing everything.
The battery charger can't help the stricken jet as the fire is consuming everything in its path, including the control cables that run to the rear of the plane. Captain Kubek begins to lose control of the aircraft. Temperatures in the hold have now reached more than 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. In the cabin, passengers are becoming desperate as they choke on the toxic fumes. 7 seconds to disaster. Now, no one is in control of the plane. The crew is probably unconscious, overcome by toxic fumes given off by the aircraft's interior fittings. Seconds later, Flight 592 nosedives into the Florida Everglades at 500 miles per hour. ValueJet eventually takes over another company and becomes AirTran. SaberTech is fined $500,000 for its part in the tragedy, but goes out of business before the money is ever paid. Since 2001, fire detection and suppression systems have become mandatory.